and welcome to Tea Club. After the success of E-Club, an initiative for students, Firefly Books have launched the Tea Club, an initiative to bring the teachers community together. It's a unique digital platform that focuses on professional and personal growth for our teacher members. Barry O'Brien is a pioneering author of school textbooks in India, a former school teacher and educationist whose classroom is the length and breadth of India. He regularly conducts workshop, training sessions for teachers and students. He believes, live the language by surrounding yourself with it is his motto. A language cannot be taught as a subject, it must be imbibed, understood, appreciated, and embraced.
Thank you, Godwin. That was a wonderful introduction. Godwin is one of our important team members. We have important team members around the country, and he is here in Kolkata. My name is Barry O'Brien. Good evening and welcome. Today we are in the company of many bright teachers, some young, some experienced, all of them very, very innovative English teachers. So a very warm welcome to you on behalf of Chetna, and I am really privileged to be the author of Englishville, a complete graded course in English from classes 1 to 8. Now today we'll be spending about an hour. Unfortunately, we can't interact that way, so you'll have to listen to me, and at the end you could ask some questions. But what I'll be talking to you about is how we can imbibe the English language. I won't say teach, because I don't think you can teach a language. You know, if you ever hear of somebody promising in the newspapers or online saying 3-month course and you'll be fluent in English, or 6-month course you'll be fluent in Spanish, don't believe them. You cannot learn a language, not in 3 months, not in 6 months, not even 3 years. What you can do is you can surround yourself with a language. You can live a language, and that's the only way to really learn a language. So how does one go about as a teacher, as a parent, as an adult, or as an expert, imbibing the language in students? So I want to just first tell you that we've got to give equal stress on writing, reading, and speaking skills. It's a journey. And what's the journey's aim? The aim is to achieve fluency. So when you're writing, when you're reading, and when you're speaking, it has to come naturally. You have to be fluent in it. So which language are you most fluent in? Tamil must be. Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, yeah? Or Hindi, or Greek, or Italian. If your mother tongue is, when I say mother tongue, I mean the language that you speak at home, the language that you hear right from the time you're in your mother's womb. That's the language which you will be most fluent in. Irrespective of whether you read Barry O'Brien's books, or books published by Chetna, or books published by anybody, or you sit with a dictionary all day, or you keep reading all day of a particular language, you cannot match the fluency that you will have in the language that you're living with, that you're living in. That's really, really important. So how do we get to this level of fluency? Well, the first thing is the frequency of the language. How frequently are you speaking the language, or reading the language, or listening to the language being spoken or read? Obviously, the language that you're speaking at home, that's the one you'll be most fluent in because of the frequency. So you can't expect children to 6 periods a week, or 5 periods a week, or 7 periods a week of English, and over a period of time they will master the language. That is impossible. So I'm not saying make it 15 periods or 20 periods a week. That's not possible. That's not practically possible. So what do you do then? Well, what you need to do is first the language in which the child needs to improve or wants to learn. Now, it so happens that we're talking about English, and in most cases, it will be a second language or a third language for the student. And in most cases, it won't be the language most frequently spoken at home. And even if it is by people around him or her, it may not be spoken very correctly, or read very correctly, or written very correctly. So, what we need to do is we need to imbibe, we need to tell the parents of our children, let us try and surround them with the English language when they are very, very young. They have to live the language. You see what's written under frequency? They have to live the language. Once they do that, so what do I mean by live the language? By live the language, I mean if they're watching cartoons or comics, reading comics, it has to be or should be in the language that they are wanting to be fluent in. If you're listening to a news channel, if you're watching a movie, if you're listening to music, if you're listening to the radio, the best thing is to listen to it in the language that you want to improve. So my family and I, a few years ago, when our daughters were grown up, my wife and I decided to take the three girls before they went their own ways. We decided to go to Europe, particularly Italy, for Italy and Spain for a nice vacation. So a few months before the vacation, the three daughters were all adults. They were learning some Spanish words and learning some Italian words, and they said, "Daddy, what about you?" I said, "Don't worry, I'll pick it up later." And I decided that on the long journey, I would learn 100 Italian words. So I started learning. Friends, over those 12 hours or 14 hours, I don't think I learned about 12 words or 15 words or whatever. And when I got done, and when we were walking the streets of Italy, I was, asking people for directions, and I was saying, we want to eat. Where we go, where restaurant? And my daughters told me, "Dad, you're speaking in English in an Italian way, but you're not speaking Italian." So the point I'm trying to make to you is you can't learn a language just by learning ABC or learning the alphabet or learning words even, right? You have to live it. Now, I know some young people who know Korean. They have not gone to tutorials in Korean, or they are not studying even Korean, but they have got hooked onto Korean serials, and from there they are a couple of hours of every day. I'm not saying learn Korean and watch serials, but I'm trying to tell you that that's the way forward. So I always give the example of how, for instance, if when I was young, I did not learn Hindi, but I spoke pretty good Hindi because I had the radio on all the time. This was back in the 1970s when we had no television at home. And I used to listen to Hindi songs. Now imagine if somebody had made that into songs of Rajnikant films, or Mammootty films, or I don't know, Nagarjuna films, or N.T. Ramarao films. Then I would learn Telugu and Malayalam and Tamil, because that's the language I would be hearing. So it's a very important thing. Before you get to any textbook, before you get to any formal class, it's extremely important for the children to be exposed to that language through song, through television, through radio, through reading, and through listening to that language. Let's move on to the next point I have there, understanding the nuances of the language, vocabulary. Now, when we say vocabulary, we immediately think of words. Son or daughter, you must learn all these words, 5 new words a day. That's not going to help you. It will help you once you are fluent in the language, then you can increase your vocabulary. But to really be fluent in a language, you have to understand and appreciate the nuances of the language. That means you have to know some idioms and phrases, and you have to listen to people constructing sentences, and then you will understand the nuances of the language. For instance, imagine if you told somebody he's having a very difficult time at home, but it's better to say he's got his back to the wall. He's fighting the odds. Different ways, more colorful ways of saying the same thing. That is understanding the nuances of the language. Then we come to expression. You cannot master a language, you cannot appreciate the nuances of a language unless you have the power of expression. So, whatever language you're speaking in, whether it's Tamil or Malayalam or Kannada or Hindi, you have to be able to, the teacher especially, has to put in a lot of expression, the correct expression. You can't say, I'm not acting on stage. Why should I put in expression? You're teaching for 40 minutes a class. You're reading something. You're reading literature, or you're reading a poem, or you're reading a play. It has to be with expression. Now, what do I mean by the power of expression? Only in your voice? Now, obviously, you have to modulate your voice. For instance, if you say, the big bear walked up to the little mouse and said, I'm going to eat you. That's correct English. But that's not English with expression. That's not fluent enough. Imagine if you said, the big bear walked up to the little mouse and said, I'm going to eat you. Oh, the little mouse said, why me? That is the power of expression, modulation of your voice. So you can go high, you can be somewhere in the middle, or you can go low. And don't think that only actors should do it or people on stage should do it. We have to do it every day in the classroom. Because remember, students, whether they're 6 years old or 10 years old or 15 years old, they love imitating their teachers. I've seen students watching ma'am or watching sir how they walk, and they imitate how they walk, how they talk. They even sometimes imitate our good habits or bad habits and become like us without realizing it. It's almost involuntarily that they're doing it. So, it's important you modulate your voice. But expression doesn't only come from your voice. So, if you believe that God said, here my son or here my girl, here is your voice, and that's it for expression. No. God gave us a face. He gave us eyes. He gave us eyebrows to frown with. He gave us lips and teeth to smile. He gave us hands to express ourselves. He even gave us shoulders where we can express ourselves. Yeah, so if you want to really express yourself besides your voice, you've got to use your face, you've got to use your eyes, you've got to use your hands, you've got to use every part of your being, as it were, to be expressive. And then the children are going to love you, they're going to love the language, and they're going to get hooked on it. Once you get a child hooked onto something, like, let's say, potato chips or kurkure or a soft drink or Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo or Virat Kohli, if they're hooked onto something or somebody, you don't have to tell them to do it. They will do it. You don't have to tell them, you must play 2 hours of PlayStation every day. If they are hooked on it, they're going to do it. You don't have to tell them, no, you must go and play cricket with your friends in the park for 2 hours every day. If they're hooked on it, they will try and find time and do it. So we, as teachers, we have to get them hooked onto this language called English, not because well, the English didn't leave it for us, I can tell you. English has grown as a language, and my community, the Anglo-Indian community, has a lot to do with it. But the English that we speak today is Indian English. It's good Indian English. We may have our accents. People from the Northeast speak a particular way. People from the South speak a particular way. We in Bengal speak a particular way. People from North India speak a particular way. That's fine. Don't try to change their accent. I do these public speaking classes for adults. And I always ask them on the first day, why have you joined this class? They're all adults, 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. And I said, why have you joined? So one of them said, he's a very successful chartered accountant. He's from Chennai. And he said, sir, I want to change my South Indian accent. He's about 45 years old. I told him, Mr. Subramaniam, you can't change your South Indian accent, and you don't need to change your South Indian accent. Barack Obama can't change his American accent, or what's his name? Rishi Sunak can't change his British accent. Accents apart, they have to speak correctly and fluently in their accent, with their accent. Accents can't change. So if you've got an accent and you speak a particular way because people of that region speak in that way, don't get inhibited about it. Don't let it worry you. That's not what we are here for. We are here to talk, to speak correctly, read correctly, and write correctly in the accent that we were born with or that we have acquired over the years where we have grown up. Yeah, so that's how it is. The expression comes from modulation of voice, your facial expressions, the pause, the look in your eyes, your hands, your shoulders. See, you can say so many things even without using words. So imagine if you add the power of words and the power of expression to the unstated words that your body or your face is emoting. Yeah, well, you will be a winner. We next get to communication skills. What is the use of being a wonderful essayist or a wonderful writer unless you want to become, J.K. Rowling, or you want to become William Shakespeare or Premchand? Basically, that apart, it's the communication skills that our children need to acquire. I used to teach for many years in a school called South Point. Wonderful school, brilliant results, toppers, thousands of students. And I used to get calls very often from the HR department, the heads of HR departments of multinational companies, big Indian FMCG companies. They'd say, Barry, your boys and girls are brilliant. But when it comes to the interview, they are not as good, or their communication skills are not as good as their writing skills, not even half as good. So I think it's very important for us in our schools, especially in India, if they can communicate, you can see that confidence will go up, and as a result, most of them will write correctly. It's impossible to speak correctly and not write correctly. That's not possible. Yeah, it is possible to write better than you speak. Many people, many journalists, many writers speak or write as well as they speak. But the issue is not that. The issue is, what is the use if you can't communicate? And nowadays so much is online and Zoom meetings and over the phone. So if you're communicating with somebody in Tokyo later on when you're working, or in Singapore, or in Nairobi, or in Paris, or in Los Angeles, and you can't communicate. I was hired by a company recently, a very big Indian company. In fact, I'm trying to avoid them now because I can't give so much time, because the frequency is important. They are asking me, these are all top engineers. Some of them are pretty senior, some of them are middle level, all brilliant engineers. Okay, I want to compare their marks in school with mine. But their bosses are saying they have a problem communicating to their clients, even communicating amongst themselves to people in different parts of the country. So friends, let us talk amongst ourselves as teachers, talk to our management, and work out how we can improve the communication skills of our children. And here I make you a promise. I was talking about Englishville, this literature and language graded course by Chetna for classes 1 to 8. Any school which uses this from the coming academic year, I can promise you that I will partner you through the year. That doesn't mean I'll come to your school every day, but I will partner you, I will hold your hand to try and improve the communication skills of not just the top students of your class, of your school, but the general standard of communication will improve, because there's a formula. There is a formula and a way and a method of everything. Yeah, and when you have one route to get there, yesterday when I was getting home from the studio, which is quite far from my home, my friend Konishko was trying to explain to my friend Probir, who drives the car. He said, you don't go this way, you'll get stuck in 2 hours traffic, you can take that way, and if you don't get that way, then you can take this way. Well, learning has got 2 or 3 and 4 and 5 other ways. So if we get stuck with one way, we will try another. So we'll come to that, communication skills. Now, the other thing I promise you is asanas, yogasanas. So I'm not going to call you on and put one mat down and then stand up, and you will see how unfit and overweight I am. and I'll have to wear those tight clothes, and you can make out even more how overweight I am. We have a yoga teacher in our home who comes every 3-4 years. We change because she or he comes for a few weeks, and we promise that yoga teacher of ours, we will do all the asanas, sir. We will do all the asanas, ma'am. But after a few weeks, we stop, and that's why I'm like this. So the asanas that I'll be giving you through the year, to schools who partner us and use Englishville, you can use my special speaking asanas or communication asanas, which I call Barry Sir's speaking asanas. Yeah. So these are the promises I'm making, but you can't do it in a short while. Remember, frequency. The most important word in a teacher's dictionary today has to be a 4-letter word, and I know what you're thinking. It's LOVE, or it must be CARE. It's neither LOVE nor CARE. It is TIME. Time. I'm interested in doing what I'm doing, so I have left a lot of important work. I'm trying to finish a manuscript, but I've come to give you what I can give you best, my TIME. So you, I'm sure, are giving a lot of TIME to your students and your school. So if you want them to improve English, their English, we've got to give it TIME, they've got to give it TIME, and then through the year, we will use and do these asanas, giving it TIME, and then we will take them to another level altogether. We move on to a slide where I want to flex my muscles, as it were, and tell you that my asanas, or my interpretation of this, is not very different from the national education policy. Of course, I congratulate the government. Sometimes the jargon, you know what jargon is, the words that they use are too difficult for a simple people like me, for a simple person like me, and it goes over my head. So I'm going to simplify it for you and tell you how I'm in sync with the national education policy, or my policy, or the policy or the theory that I've followed to bring out and present what I want to in Englishville. This series is in sync with the national education policy. Well, let's go to the first point I want to make is children must feel. They say, you know, that they want children to understand, to empathize, to feel for others, to emote, and to be able to express. Well, I can connect that to a language. You cannot master a language. You cannot be fluent in a language unless you feel. You feel the language, you feel for people, you empathize with people. Empathize with people means, I can feel your pain, brother. I know what you're going through, sister. If you feel that empathy, and if you can explore and meet people and travel, if you can understand what is happening around you, and you can emote, you don't keep it all inside you, and then you can express your emotions, then and only then can you really be fluent in a language. So that's the connection between what the NEP is saying and what I am saying. Right, it also says to promote fun foundational literacy, which basically means at the bottom. It's very difficult to teach an adult anything. Try to teach a 30-year-old to swim and try to teach a 4-year-old to swim. I challenge you, the 4-year-old will learn in a couple of weeks, and the 30-year-old will be frightened for a couple of weeks. Or cycling. So these things have to be imbibed and have to be learned at an early age. Simple with the language also. So to promote foundational literacy and to promote a language or teach people a language, you have to catch them young. Once again, in sync with the NEP. You have to strengthen cognition. Now, they've used the term cognition. Unfortunately, most of us don't even know what it means. And I actually had to check the dictionary for its exact, I had an idea, but to check its exact meaning, it means the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. The mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. Which basically is connected to the first point that you have to feel and you have to understand, explore, empathize, emote, and express. So it's extremely important when we are learning a language or when we are acquiring knowledge. It's important, very important, to go through this process by understanding, right? By thinking. I'll come to the point later about how you have to think in the language that you're speaking in. We'll come later. There it is. Connect the thought and the word, spoken and written. One of the problems we have is people who teach English as a second language or third language. Of course, it's our first language in school, but it's their second language or their third language. They are thinking in Tamil, translating it, and then speaking in English, or thinking in Malayalam, or thinking in Telugu, or thinking in Hindi, or thinking in Kannada, and translating it. I got really fortunate. I am really fortunate. I'm a trilingual Indian. It doesn't make me exceptional. I wish I knew a couple of more languages. I mean, I'm really, really sad that I've been to Tamil Nadu so many times, or Karnataka so many times, or Andhra Pradesh and Telangana so many times. Kerala, I love Kerala, but I don't know the language. How sad is that? So Indians should know 5, 6, 7 languages, but at least 3. At least 3. So I'm really fortunate that I'm trilingual. And I've been doing it for so long that when I speak in Bangla, I'm thinking in Bangla. There's no translation. I think in Bangla and speak in Bangla. So like, when for 5 years I was a nominated member of the Legislative Assembly in West Bengal, I used to speak in English in my speeches because I represented the Anglo-Indian community and my mother tongue is English. But my colleagues in the assembly, obviously most of them were Bengali first language speakers. They would tell me, Bari Sahib, apni ekটু বাংলায় বলুন না. Why don't you speak a little Bangla? And I gave it a try and I enjoyed it. So I started giving a lot of anecdotes and stories in Bangla, which was more effective to get my point across. And when I was speaking, I realized that I am not thinking in English and doing some mechanical translation. No, I was just speaking straight off the cuff. That's the aim. It can't happen overnight, but that's the real aim, to connect the thought and the word. So we move on to now sharing with you how in Englishville, books 1 to 8, I'm just going to give you some quick examples of how we're going to engage the student, how we're going to get them hooked onto this language, how we're going to make them feel, come on, let's open the book. I really love this language because I'm excited about it because of some way. Yeah. So I'm going to share with you all that I've told you, how I've implemented it in Englishville. Some of you are teaching it already, so I'm sure you're feeling it, but I'm going to quickly take you through. This is, for instance, now I need to tell you, this is the only book that I have come across where we have a QR code to explore. So you got to just scan the QR code every page of the book or every chapter. So the student doesn't always need you or me or the parent. Just scan it, or the parent does not need to teach the child English, perhaps the wrong English. You just need to scan the QR code and the entire manuscript, the entire book, all 8 books, whether it's a poem or a prose piece or an essay or a play, is read, and you can see the author with his family reading the book, reading the story, reading the poem. So therefore you're going to, if you think I can speak English correctly or I can read English correctly and I have the power of expression, you are, I think, going to learn something, and your children are definitely going to, and even their parents can listen to it. You can't say, no, this is not for mummies and daddies. You don't try to learn English from these books. Why not? Why not? They don't have to come to class. They can sit at home, or when the children are sleeping, they can also sort of read the language and listen to the language because of this very unique thing that Chetna has introduced. So I want to congratulate the management of Chetna for coming up with this really innovative and novel idea of this QR code scanning. There's no app, there's no CDs or DVDs like we used to have before, or even nothing, no audiobooks. You just scan it over here and it becomes an audiobook. So that is absolutely amazing. And I think that's the great USP. That's the main, our flagship point, what we are telling all schools, that this is a wonderful opportunity for the children the teachers and the parents to hear the language. Also, not just hear it being spoken, to see it being spoken. That's a huge thing, to see somebody speaking the language. That's when the power of expression comes. So, Birbal and the poor farmer. And what we do is, before we begin, we have a little bit of a warm up, or we entice them to come into the language. So in this one, this is a play. I've taken, yes, we can move on to the next slide, Devolina. This, I have taken this book 4, chapter 15, example, page number 126. Yeah, I've taken a play, a story of Birbal. Now, many books have Birbal stories, lovely stories with a message and all that, but I've made it into a play with characters. Because drama, theater, is an amazing way to teach a language. Music is an amazing way to teach a language. Imagine if you could ask your children, before I come to this, music, very important. Imagine if you can ask your children to listen to an English song, or any song, and then speak the song. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, I will just tell you, say if we had a song, "The hills are alive with the sound of music." Nice. Imagine if you say after that, say the song. "The hills are alive with the sound of music." So, the tip I'm giving you is, play a song for them, tell them to listen to English songs at home, slow songs particularly, where the words are clear, the words come, the music comes, they learn to sing it a bit. Most of them will not be able to sing, like I can't sing, and then they put the music off and they say the words, not in a sing-song way, not in a musical way, not like a song. They say the song as if they're speaking it. So I can't do that. We can't do that in the book, unfortunately. Maybe someday I will bring out a book where we'll call it Speaking Songs. Good idea. I just got the idea, actually. Please don't use the idea, because it's my idea. Speaking songs. That means I'll take a song and speak it out, with expression. Wonderful. Anyway, back to this. The other thing is theater. Don't wait for the annual concert. Yeah, annual concert is great. The chief guest will come. Money will be spent on lights and costumes. All that's good. I am talking about theater and drama being a part of the daily curriculum. It's happening in class. They don't have to get costumes. They don't need lights. They don't need makeup, which makes them feel all itchy. Just reading as if they are doing a play. Like this one. So they can all be different characters. Somebody is Emperor Akbar, somebody is Birbal, somebody is the minister who doesn't have much over here, or somebody is the person who's being wronged, and they'll all be part of the play. And the idea is, don't give the same children the main roles. Try to involve other people of the class. So let's go down to the next one and give you some more examples. So here you are, this Birbal story. They're the characters, and each of them is going to speak. So I've created 2 characters. They're the narrators, but instead of calling them narrator 1 and 2, I've called them Speak Well. That's one character. And Clearly is another character. So you can go. Speak Well says, "It is a cold day in winter." Yes, it is indeed a cold day in winter. No, it is a very cold day in winter. Yes, it is indeed a very cold day in winter. Fun. Where the children can use different voices and expressions. Let's move on, Devolina, to give them some more examples. This is book 6, chapter 5, page number 37. You don't have to remember all this. I'm just giving you some examples. This is another play. And this play, I wrote this play. It's a fun play. Humor. You will find a lot of humor in my book. Because I feel humor, they say humor sells. People, if it's a funny television serial or a funny movie, lots of people want to watch. Yeah? So I put in, and children love humor. So there's a lot of humor in my book. This is a humorous play. But once again, it's a play. Yeah, so they can play different roles. If you ask me, I didn't have the courage to do it. But actually, if I could write another series, half the book would be plays, where the children are playing different roles. But obviously, we've got to give them other forms of literature. So let's move on to the next example. Book 4, chapter 1, page 10. Devolina, thank you. This is a poem now. They will read William Wordsworth. They will read Rabindranath Tagore and Sarojini Naidu. But if you tell them right in the beginning, this is what you're going to read, it becomes a subject. To get them there, to get them to the biggies, to get them to the nice big a la carte meals where they're going to have, some sort of sense of taste, you first have to give them a little starters. Those starters have to be catchy, something that they like, something they can understand, something they can say, oh, I want to learn this poem. So in book 4, I think book 4, in the first chapter, it's called Virat's the Best. It's about Virat Kohli. As soon as you do that, you don't have to tell the child, don't forget to bring your book. Okay, the child is going to bring the book because he's a fan of Virat Kohli, or he thinks Virat Kohli is a great batsman, and he'll say, can I read this, ma'am? And he'll go, Virat is the world's best batsman. With bat in hand, he's a craftsman. He does get excited a lot. Unfair on the field, he is not. And so on and so forth. I can tell you, the child will be immediately engaged. This is just an example. There are others. Imagine if you go to class tomorrow and say, we are going to discuss, is Messi the greatest footballer of all time? What do you think of the match? Do you think France deserved to win? And they'll all be animated and they all get into the conversation. But your hidden agenda is to involve them. Your hidden agenda is to get them to live the language, to speak the language, to listen to the language. Not football and not Messi and not Virat Kohli. That's only the vehicle. So are we cheating? Yeah, we are cheating. We are cheating in a fair way, not in an unfair way. But if you only want to give them what's traditionally been written in literature books or language books for years, it's not going to get them, not going to get you anywhere. So what's the subject? It's really important. Let's move on, Devolina. And now we come to book 3, chapter 1, page number 10. This is an example of visual. There is no person in the world who does not like a visual. It's like we used to love listening to the cricket commentary. But when we can now watch the match, oh, there's a big difference. There's a big difference. So that's why people love comics. They love cartoons. They love movies. They love television series because of the visuals. So we've tried to give very attractive visuals. In fact, there are 1 or 2 chapters in each book where we have set up these 6 characters. 4 of them are 2 boys, 2 girls, and 2. One is a doggy and one is a birdie. And they are usually going on an adventure. So the idea is that the children will themselves feel that they're going on an adventure, either to look for a treasure or they are flying around on a flying magic carpet to different parts of India. So the whole concept of fantasy and the whole concept of a visually attractive thing to speak about will really interest them and keep them engaged. As we move on now to give you another example, book 5, chapter 10, pages 84 and 85, again visual. Again, trying to get them to speak. Friends, we can't ask children, now son or young girl, please go up over there and introduce yourself and speak about this topic. How can they do it? They're not equipped to do it at 10 or 12 or 14 even, or because they're not fluent in the language. So you've got to engage them. So here we have a chapter which is totally visual. There's nothing in writing. So there are 2 Indias. So we'll tell them now, look at the left and look at the right. And they'll say, oh, ma'am, are these 2 Indias? Yes, there are 2 Indias. Now you tell me, firstly, which India would you like to be in? Or which India are you in? But don't you think that the people in one India can be a little selfish and not reach out to the other India? On the other hand, don't you think the people in the other India are not keeping their surroundings clean, etc.? And you activate their taste buds. Once you activate their taste buds. Now, somebody who's interested in Virat Kohli may not be as interested in this, or somebody who's as interested in this may not be interested in Virat Kohli. That's where you get everybody involved. Okay, so these are the examples. We have questions that will come up after this in this chapter of this seed. Book 6, chapter 2, page number 15 is another example I want to show you. Again, humor. Uncle Podger hangs a picture. Now, that's a very, very famous story by Jerome K. Jerome. And now, I want to tell you that it's not all written by Barry O'Brien. Much of it is written by me originally, especially the lower books. But as you go higher, so you've got Charles Dickens, you've got William Wordsworth, you've got Rabindranath Tagore, you've got Sarojini Naidu, you've got Roald Dahl, Ruskin Bond, even a poem by Vikram Seth. So the classics are there. The big writers are there. I've tried to, in fact, sometimes simplify some of their writing depending on the age group. So Uncle Podger, again, humor and a classic story. But look left. And before we start with the story, we actually say, hey, look at these pictures over there. Can you think of a story? Can you think of a name or a title? And they'll say, oh, that one. Okay, I want to call it Monkeying Around. The monkeys have gone to school and everybody seems to be monkeying around a laptop. And then the top right one, I want to call it, if it was Hindi, you'd say, beta to beta bapre bap, something like that. I don't know what it is in Tamil, but you could come up with a fun thing. The idea is to engage them, involve them. Let's move on and give you some more examples. We've still got a little bit of time. Book 3, chapter 16, page number 124 is another example of fantasy, of classic stories, Mary Poppins, Alice in Wonderland. So we've got things for, sometimes some people relate more to Mary Poppins and Alice in Wonderland than to an adventure story, because just like you and me, we have different interests. So children also have different interests, and we've tried to keep a wide net to try and engage all of them in some way. And this one, if you see, oh, that's Spider-Man, that's Superman, that's Harry Potter. Oh my goodness me, this is interesting. Who are they? What special powers do they have? Oh, this is interesting. Is this really, ma'am, a class going on? Oh, I love this class. And the hidden agenda is they are speaking in the language and they'll slowly start thinking in that language. Okay, so you move on to another example, book 8, chapter 15, page 124. Let's have a look at what that is. William Wordsworth, as I was just telling you that, we've got all the classics, but you can't start only with the classics. They will get maybe bored or disinterested, or they might find it too difficult. So while speaking about starting, I just want to share with you something. When the teachers who are in pre-primary and primary, please do not get carried away with the alphabet and words and spelling. No. Words, yes. But words as in, the fan is not on, but the lights are on, and the air conditioning is not on, so I'm feeling really hot. Words like that is fine, but just words or just letters. I give this example which some people find funny. I tell teachers, ladies and gentlemen, do you want to learn a language? They all say yes. I'll say, well, you don't know this, but actually I've been studying Chinese for the last 17 years and I know Chinese. Would you like to learn? I won't even charge you any fees. Yes, sir. I said, okay, take your notebooks out now, and here's the board. I am going to take my marker and I'm going to teach you the first 3 letters of the Chinese alphabet. Are you ready? And they'll all say, yes, sir. I say, here goes. And I'll write something, draw some design. And I'll say, what's that? That's the first letter of the Chinese alphabet. Xiao. Say xiao. And they all say xiao. Then I'll make some other. And I'll say, that's piao. Say piao. They'll say piao. So xiao piao. They'll say xiao piao. And then I'll make some other. And I'll say, you know what that is? That's meow. Xiao piao meow. Xiao piao meow. See it? And they're all saying xiao piao meow. I said, there you know the first 3 letters of the alphabet. Could you do something with it? Could you speak? Could you make up a word? No, sir, how will we do that? I said, then how do you expect a child to know A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, Z? No, how would you expect? What will the child do with it except get bored? But if you said, this is a glass. What is this? A glass. Oh, what is inside the glass? Water. And they're looking at your lips. They're not saying water because you're not saying water. You're saying water. So this is a glass. And inside the glass, see, they're looking inside the glass. So whatever the Tamil word or Telugu word or Kannada word or Malayali word for inside, you say inside the glass, okay? So there's water inside the glass, and I'm thirsty. I'm very thirsty. Thirsty means I need water. So excuse me, boys and girls. That was good. I was thirsty, and therefore I picked up the glass, and I saw there's water in the glass, and I drank the water. That's the only way you can teach a language. Obviously with lots of repetition and words, and then you can write the word. They don't have to learn to spell the word. It's just they listen to it. That is why I have taken the trouble of hours and hours and hours of studio time and actually recorded every word of every chapter in my book, okay? So that they can and you can, everybody can listen to it, not just Xiao Piao. No offense to, I have great Chinese friends. I wish someday they actually teach it to me, and I will actually fool everybody by giving you the correct first 3 letters of the alphabet. That will take me about a year to learn, but that's on another day. Let's move on to Book 3, Chapter 7, page number 59. Here is an example, once again, of humor. This is a poem that I've written, and it's something that is very simple. I also believe that you've got to start with the simple. Many of the books I've seen, good luck to them, they're much too difficult at an early stage. At the early stages, it's got to be simple. So, this poem goes like this. I'd like you to meet my old Uncle Willie. He's tall and he's thin and he pretends to be silly. He carries an umbrella, though the weather is fine, and opens it in the restaurant when he's ready to dine. If you don't act it out, friends, there's no language. And this has nothing to do with theater. This is to do with the power of expression, to be able to get children hooked onto the language. And after that, the kurkure and the cold drink will do its job, and the PlayStation will do its job. We can compete with all this if we get children hooked onto this wonderful language, or any language for that matter. Yes, Devalina is taking us to Book 1, Chapter 16, page number 110. Let's see what we've got over there. A grandma's cricket team. Again, humor. The original poem was Grandma's football team. I made it Grandma's cricket team. And just like the National Education Policy says, values. So actually it's a fun poem, but these values in this poem is to do with, grandparents, other relatives or people, elderly people, yeah? We can't lecture children. We can't tell them, you must respect all your grandparents and elderly people. No. That's lecturing. You have to do it in a camouflaged, clever way, and I've done it through these stories and poems. Let's move on to Book 1, Chapter 16, page 115. Now we come to the exercises. The exercises, once again, are as simple as possible. I've tried to keep it. So let's say, take Book 1. The first, we have a comprehension. So it's called question zone. First we have objective, and then we move on to, and it's staggered. It is systematically done, progressively tougher as you move on to the higher classes. So this one is obviously, I think, class 1. Think quick, fill in the blanks, one word. Grandma is in a blank team. So that's so easy. Why are you asking? If somebody else tells you, ma'am, why are you asking it so easy? Arey, let them answer it. What's the problem if they answer it? So one word answers. Then we've got exercise B. Join the words on the left with the words on the right to make complete sentences. So they do that. Then C is connected to it. Use the sentences that you've just joined and brought together, you have made to answer these questions. So see, it follows. And obviously in the later books, then we have reference to the context, we have longer answers, think and answer. So it's done in quite a systematic way. The second part is vocabulary corner. Besides question zone, let's move on to vocabulary corner. So everything is done like in an interactive way. We move on, Devalina, to vocabulary corner. Here's an example, I think. Yep. Now this is again comprehension, another example of comprehension. So write short answers, then think and answer, and reference to context. This is what I was telling you about systematically going up. Then we have vocabulary corner, which is usually a word game. So it could be clever word game. It could be a crossword, Debolina, we can just show it to them. It could be a crossword like this one. Yeah, simple crosswords. And I could send you more for those schools that are going to use this book and partner with Chetna and partner me. Other word games we have conceived. Yes, Debolina, I think we may have one more example of a word game. No, we move on to, on the left, if you see, add color to your language. So how can you say something in a different way? Vocabulary is not only learning words. Vocabulary is the ability to say something, a similar thing, in a different way. And for me, that's really, really important. I don't think we give enough importance to that, because if you have 3 or 4 ways of saying the same thing, that gives you fluency in the language. You may say, sir, how are you speaking? I don't have a single paper. If you ask me to do that in a language I don't know well enough, I'm going to struggle, because I don't have 3 or 4 or 5 alternative ways of saying the same thing. But now I'm thinking, if I want to say something, I've got A, B, like going back home. It doesn't have to take me 2 hours. It can take me less, because I've got alternative routes. Yep. Anyway, we move on to, so after comprehension, then we come to vocabulary corner, and then we've got grammar grove. Here, friends, please accept the fact, no child is going to come and say, ma'am, I love grammar. Bring it on, ma'am. Please, sir, bring it on. Give me a few more grammar. Nobody. Most people think grammar is too tough or tedious. So what I've tried to do, not very ambitious, I've kept it very simple. Simple explanations with examples to get the basics across. Grammar is not to be tested. Grammar is to be understood and practiced, not tested. Grammar has to be simply explained and then repetition. It's like arithmetic, or it's like the problems or sums you have in mathematics. You know the formula, you know what's to be done, but you can't go with that. You have to keep practicing, and then you will master it. So we've done that in Grammar Grove. As we move on, Debolina is now going to take us to our next step, which is an example from Book 2, Chapter 10, page 68 and 69. And this is, again, an example of Grammar Grove. How simply, if you go through this particular chapter. And what I've done is, I've tried to put little rectangular boxes over there with the characters, so that gives relief. It's very important to give visual relief. I can still remember a class 9 history book, and I just didn't want to study it. And my parents told me, because we were a family surrounded by books. My father earned a living through books, and he used to say, listen, it's our bread and butter, so you cannot touch any book, means you can't make a mark. But I couldn't remember anything, so I quietly one night started marking with red and green, and when I went to the examination hall, I could visualize the page because of the visual of the red and the green, etc. I'm not saying you should mark textbooks. What I'm saying is, so now you don't need to. So they will be able to remember. See on the right top corner, playing, going, so that a child can visually try and be attracted to it, and then visually remember it. Right, so grammar made easy, as easy as possible. As we move on to another example, now we move on, Book 5, Chapter 16, page number 117, as we move on from Grammar Grove to, so we finished comprehension, we finished vocabulary corner, we've finished Grammar Grove, and now we come to Writing Avenue, because this is Englishville, this is a place, this is like a village, this is like a town. So we go to the avenue, Writing Avenue. Once again, like speaking, you can't tell them write 10 lines on so-and-so, write an essay on so-and-so. How will they do it? So you have to assist them. So if you look at it, there are blanks in the letter. Now fill in the blanks with whatever word you want. I call this assisted writing. Okay, there has to be assisted writing, assisted speaking. You can't throw them in at the deep end. No, they will drown. So assisted writing, and then we get more and more difficult. After that is over, we have Communication Street. Friends, as far as I'm concerned, this is the most important the runaway success of this series is to do with that QR code and that reading that I was talking about, and Communication Street. Almost every chapter has this Communication Street comprising a group discussion, to get them to chat and to talk in an organized way, not shouting out all the time. Listen carefully. There are listening exercises. Speak correctly. And basically, speak correctly means Devolina will now take us down to the next slide, and I'll show you from book 4. Don't say, say. So we've got group discussion, we've got listening exercises, and we've got speak correctly, which corrects the common mistakes that we make in India. Not just children, we also make it. Like, for instance, many of us say, if you see the third one or the fourth one, the teacher is angry on him. No, the teacher is angry with him. So if we've done it in a chart form, so they can easily remember that. But we spend a lot of time doing this. And where did I get these sentences from? From my 35 years experience as a teacher. So I've got my finger on the pulse. I didn't actually write it down, but I wrote it down here, and I've used that. We also have correct pronunciation. Pronunciation is important. As far as I'm concerned, it's not the most important thing. Grammar is more important. To be able to converse is more important, even if you mispronounce a few words. But once you've got that under control, pronunciation becomes important. So we've got pronunciation exercises as well as conversation practice. What do you do? I mean, you have to convert, you have to speak. So we've got, we've got these little doggies barking next door. That is not controlled conversation. In the classroom, we've got to have controlled conversation. No barking and shouting like that. Yeah, we've got to have control, but we've got to have conversation. We've got to have discussion. We can't say, don't talk. You can tell those doggies don't bark. That's different. But you can't tell the children in class, don't talk. You will say, don't be like those doggies and bark and shout at all the time without knowing. You have to speak in a controlled atmosphere, one with one, four with one. Okay, so conversation. Yes, we move on. Devolina, don't worry about those doggies here. All our neighbors have lots of doggies. Book 1, chapter 12, a number of birds. Now, I've finished and I'm through with what I wanted to tell you. So you can start sending us your questions. I'm just going to give you a few. Some of you don't have the book, or you don't not experience this QR code thing. I'm going to ask Konishko, just show us 4 or 5 examples, short examples of the video being shown. I mean, the chapter being read, and they can follow it while I'm reading the chapter, or along with my daughter Nadia or my wife Denise. We're a family of readers. You can follow the chapter, or the child can follow the chapter. So quickly, Konishko, let's show them a couple of 3 or 4 examples, like a number of birds, book 1.
We're stepping into a poem now. It's called A Number of Birds. When we are studying or learning, we can learn more than one thing at the same time. For instance, now we're going to learn all about birds, numbers, addition, as well as parts of birds. So, let's begin. We start with numbers. How many in a dozen? You know that? Yep, 12. Half a dozen? Correct, 6. What about days in the week? Now, I'm not going to help you. I'm sure you can work it out. And weeks in a year, and months in a year, and days in June, and days in February, and days in December, and days in September, and how many in a century, and how many in half a century, and how many in a decade. And you can go on and have your own number quiz. It's fun learning about parts of a human, parts of an animal, parts of a bird, and also try and find out, besides finding out the name of the part, what the part is used to do. For instance, with this, we can point, we can use a pen with it. What do birds do with their claws? What do they do with their beaks? What about their feathers? Nadia and I are now going to recite a poem with actions. We won't be very good with the actions because we've got the book in hand, and she's not so old, but I'm pretty old. But you can do it with lots of good actions. It's called A Number of Birds, and was fun writing this poem. I wrote it many years ago. I hope you enjoy it. A Number of Birds.
I lay eggs and you call me a hen. Add 9 more, now we are 10.
I talk a lot and say, I'm fine. Add 8 more, now we are 9.
I crow at sunrise, you're never late. Add 7 more, now we are 8.
I fly in the sky up to heaven. add 6 more. You're really going to like this poem if you like cricket and you like Virat Kohli. It means thinking out of the box, means doing your own fun, creative thinking. You know, become Alice and go to Wonderland, or become some person or some animal and have some fun being creative. Like, for instance, look at this picture and come up with ideas of your own. Give the batting team a name and the bowling team a name. I've thought of one. I'm going to call the batting team BBB, Big Boys in Blue, BBIB, Big Boys in Blue, and they're taking on OBs, Orange Blossoms. And the tournament that they are playing, let's call it Seaside Cup, and the name of the stadium I've thought of is Coconut Grove. That's fun. Do you play sport? I'm sure. And if you don't, well, you better start playing some sport, some game. You don't have to be Virat Kohli or become, Roger Federer or Muhammad Ali or any great player, Dhyan Chand. You just have to be yourself, but you must be active. So what's your favorite sport? I like playing many games in sports. Unfortunately, not so much now because I'm not very good at it. But when I was your age, I was always playing. What's your favorite sport? And when you're talking about sports, try and discuss what qualities.
Chapter 2, Clothes That Talk, are the narrator, Sky, the blue t-shirt, Whitey, the handkerchief, Soul, Neha's only pair of sneakers, Dot, the bubbly red polka-dotted skirt, Chunky, the sparkly dress, Mr. and Mrs. Sock, a pair of bright orange socks.
Me too. I know there will be a lot of work to do, but there will also be so many new things to see. It is far more enjoyable than being stuck in the cupboard for months on end.
I don't think Neha will choose me though. She usually only picks me for parties and events in the evening.
Oh, I hope she doesn't choose me. I'll get mud and dirt all over me when she plays on the field. It will take days for me to be fully clean again. You know, I hate being washed. Scrub, scrub, scrub. Ouch!
This chapter is titled A Cat's. I tell you, if you've got space and you've got the time and you can look after the animal, I can tell you he or she is going to love you a lot. So it could be a dog, it could be a cat. And if you've got a farm, then you could have a horse. But some animals can't be kept at home, of course. You know, I'm talking about the tiger and the lion and lots of other animals. Well, most people actually nowadays keep dogs or cats. Do you have a pet? Do you think it's easier to keep a dog as a pet or a cat? How are they different? Think about it, talk about it in your class. Animals cannot speak like you and I can. But what if they could? What if they could express their feelings and tell us how they felt? You do know that they have feelings just like we do. They feel pain and sadness and happiness and tiredness. Surprised? Well, let's listen to what this cat has to say. Hello, I'm Tim, and I'm a cat. Everyone thinks it's odd that my name is Tim and not Tom. What's your name? You look like a human. I hope you're not a mean one. Some of them are very cruel. I know what you must be thinking. A talking cat? How can it be? But it's true. Cats, in fact all animals, speak their own language. Sometimes humans forget that we have feelings as well, and we like to let others know how we feel. I, for one, love to talk. Let me tell you a little about myself. I'm a Korat. That's a breed of cat, you know. My ancestors came from Thailand. Have you ever been there? I've heard it's a beautiful country. It is both mountains and beaches. I learned that it has a great history. I've never been there though.
Chapter 1. The ABC Poem. A playful poem full of energy and good cheer. This is a typical nonsense verse by Spike Milligan. The rhythm used by the poet makes the poem exciting and fun to read aloud.
'Twas midnight in the schoolroom and every desk was shut, when suddenly from the alphabet was heard a loud tut-tut.
Said A to B, I don't like C. His manners are a lack. For all I ever see of C is a semicircular back.
I disagree, said D to B. I've never found C so. From where I stand, he seems to be an uncompleted O.
Chapter 1. The ABC Poem. A playful poem
Chapter
full of
1.
energy and good cheer.
Lockdown and a
This
teenager.
is a typical nonsense
The poet
verse
is speaking
by
on
Spike
behalf
Milligan.
of a teenager.
The rhythm
and how
used by
the
the poet
lockdown
makes the
affected
poem
his life.
exciting and fun
Staying
to
at
read
home
aloud.
for so many months wasn't
'Twas
at all
midnight
easy,
in the schoolroom
but it
and
also
every
had a
desk
positive
was
effect
shut,
on him
when
and his
suddenly
parents.
from the alphabet
Did something
was heard
similar
a loud
happen to
tut-tut.
you?
Said A to B, I don't like
Tiny
C.
virus
His
kept us at home.
manners are a
No
lack.
school, no
For
sport,
all I ever
no
see of
places to
C
roam.
is a
Week
semicircular
after
back. Within
I
4
disagree,
walls.
said
keeping
D
in
to
touch
B. I've
video
never
calls.
found C so.
I helped
From
with
where
chores,
I stand, he
tidied my
seems
room.
to be
Dad
an
introduced me
uncompleted
to Mr.
O.
Broom.
C
In the
was
kitchen,
vexed.
I made my
I'm
debut,
much perplexed.
helping Chef
You
Mom,
criticized
though
my shape.
I had no clue.
I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm sure that you have picked up something. I wish we could meet, but that's not possible. So once again, I would like to thank Chetna. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity for putting together this book and all the help that you've given me, and particularly for that QR code idea where the entire, it was really tough. Hours and hours of studio time of reading every single line and reading it in my library, reading it within the beautiful, warm, cozy confines of my home with all books around and colorful curtains and all that. So I've welcomed you into my home and my heart in terms of the language. I hope you will welcome us, and English will be in a wonderful adventure and a wonderful journey as we take it together. All schools that use English will 1 to 8, you can be rest assured that the Chetna team and we will be in touch with you and take you along the journey to see how we can help our children live the language. You can't learn the language. So they can hear the language, they can speak the language. Teachers and parents, you too can listen to the videos and watch, not just listen to the language, but watch the language or see the language being spoken correctly. It's been a wonderful experience bringing the book together, and yes, the lockdown is the lockdown. We even wrote a poem about it, and I can assure you that the children will be interested in most of the poems or the chapters or the plays or all the chapters that we have put together for you, because it's a subject that would interest them. Thank you once again very, very much. Remember, don't feel shy that I've got, this accent or that accent. Don't worry about that. We just have to be fluent. We have to ensure that our children are thinking in the same language that they are speaking. No translation, just the straight connect. It's been wonderful. All the messages we have are thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. There are no questions as such, but I will answer all your questions because I'm not going away for 12 months online, not coming over there, but we can be in touch for 12 months once the adventure begins. I'll welcome you into Englishville in the new academic year. Looking forward to partnering you and looking forward to not just getting the children to live the language, but to live the language ourselves. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Have a wonderful 2023. It's extremely difficult and challenging to be a teacher today. Very, very difficult to be a teacher today. And I salute you with my right hand. I salute you. I thank you on behalf of parents, on behalf of everyone in the country for choosing to be a school teacher. It's very challenging. God bless you and all that you do. Take care.